Hey guys, so it's been a while since I last made a video, and as you can see, stuff has happened on this miniature. Unfortunately, I did make a video previous to this where I did actually paint the skin tones up to where it is now. However, that appears to have vanished. Not entirely sure how. I upgraded my computer at some point in time over Christmas, and evidently I failed to copy the files across to the new one. So whoops. So I'm going to quickly go through essentially what's happened with the model so far, and take you through what we did in the previous sort of episode, if you will. So as you can see, we did a base coat skin tone on her with some first stage highlighting and shading. I think I said previously that I wanted to really try and push the contrast with this. One of the things I've noticed about my painting is that I don't tend to really push the contrast between sort of darker areas and what should be sort of lighter areas. So I want to try and do that a bit more on this figure. So I also said that what I wanted to do was pick a sort of Native American type skin tone, so more reddish than sort of a standard Caucasian skin tone, if you will. And I managed to find a sort of resource on the internet which detailed all sorts of different skin tones and the paints you could use. So that's what I've got lined up here, so we'll quickly go through these. I think it was linked off of Cool Mini or not. If I can, I'll try and put the link in the description. So I haven't got the mid-tone, so all I did for the mid-tone was I just mixed the orange brown and the tan yellow. They're quite nice, they work quite well together. That just gave me a mid-tone, and we base coated her in that mid-tone. You can see on the face I didn't really do any highlighting and shading too much on the face, so you can see there she's got that sort of mid-tone going on. Kind of looks like she's got a 5 o'clock shadow. I wanted to go back and redo that mid-tone. Then I came in with a bit of the orange, brown and tan yellow, and the two darker and lighter shades that I'm using are going to be basic skin tone and cavalry brown. All of these are from Vallejo. There is a mid-tone, I think it's called gold brown, which is also a Vallejo colour. But I decided that sort of mixing those two together would be enough, and it worked quite well. So what I did was I just basically went around and defined sort of the volumes, sort of on the arm, sort of the dark bit on the arm, the light bits on the arm, and sort of chest, stomach area, the legs, and round near her bum, thighs, etc, etc. And on her back. Her back is quite curved in. If you look at it from a side view, you can see it's got sort of a very definite curve going on there. So what I wanted to do was represent that by keeping that area sort of in shadow, and then having sort of a lighter area at the bottom and on her bottom, then a sort of another lighter area up near the shoulder. So the hair is actually covering a significant portion of it. So that was essentially what I did. Went over, did a very quick sort of almost a sketch really of sort of the first stage darks and the first stage lights for her sort of skin tone, and then left it at that. So that's where we are at the moment. So I thought I'd just sort of do a quick video just to show you where we're up to. Unfortunately, it's been sort of quite some time, along with sort of moving house and getting everything sorted in the new house. I've managed to discover Minecraft. Don't worry, I'm not going to turn the channel into yet another Let's Play Minecraft. There's plenty of those if you want to go look at them. And became somewhat addicted to that. So I've managed to drag myself away for this Sunday afternoon, and I'm determined to actually do some sort of work, sort of painting, that kind of thing, instead of actually just sitting there killing creepers. So I thought I'd do a quick overview of sort of what we've done on the figure so far. What I said at the end of the video that never actually happened, was that I was going to go back and sort of touch all these areas up, clean them up, sort of put a bit more sort of highlighting and shading on. Same colours, I'm not going to go deeper or lighter yet. I'll do that on video, but just sort of blend the colours in a bit more, make them a bit more defined. I'm finding it quite difficult to paint and film at the moment. I'm not sure why. I think something's changed in the setup, but I'm finding it quite difficult. I've got myself a magnifying glass at the moment, so I need to spend a bit of time trying to figure out sort of the best way of trying to use the camera and that at the same time to see if I can get a better view, because essentially I am a good sort of 15 to 20 centimeters away from the actual figure, and the figure is actually bigger on the camera's viewfinder, the little sort of screen thing, than it is that I can actually see it. So I'm ending up actually painting via the viewfinder, but obviously this only gives me monocular vision. I don't have depth perception on it, so it's not the greatest. So the question is, other than Minecraft and generally messing up computers, what else have I been doing with my time? Well, I've been doing a bit of military modelling. Recently I built a 88mm Pack 36 from the Tamiya range. It's a 1/35th model, so all of the humans are sort of about sort of yay big, which is quite nice. I enjoyed building that. It took me almost a week to build it, so I was just sort of doing it on and off, an hour here and there kind of thing. I've also finished painting one of my Panthers that I'd built previously, brought it over, I literally just undercoated it black, and it got packed up, so I didn't have time to do anything. But what I'll do is I'll cut now, zoom the camera out a little bit, and we'll have a quick look at that, just for, you know, why not. Alright, I'll see you in a minute. Okay, so here we are. As you can see, it's significantly bigger than other models that I've built and painted, but I think it's come out quite nicely. It's painted in sort of winter camouflage, which was sort of quite often used on the Russian front, obviously for obvious reasons, it being quite snowy out there, and it's painted in the sort of standard German grey colour underneath. The idea was that the crew would sort of go out in the grey, realise that they were sort of blatantly obvious against the snow, and essentially just whitewash their vehicles. And what tended to happen was that would rub off, especially in sort of areas that the crew used quite a lot. So sort of on the lids and things like that, it would wear off and rub away. And towards the end of the winter, it would just wash off anyway. So this was a bit of a test figure, to be honest, mainly because I realised that shortly after painting I'd completely forgotten to actually put any decals on it, so it is completely and utterly without markings of any kind, which is mildly unfortunate, but it does mean that I got to play around with a few bits and bobs to try stuff out, which was great. One of which was the AK Interactive. They do a winter grime effect, which is what that sort of green vertical stripes is. Hopefully that will come out on the video, but that looks absolutely fantastic. It's really easy to do. They do a sort of rust effect as well, similar kind of substance essentially. It's a enamel sort of colour, which means that you can use white spirit to essentially sort of, you put a line of the stuff on, get a brush loaded with white spirit, and essentially just drag the brush down it, and that helps just streak it out and sort of blend it in, and you get these really nice sort of streaking effects. The rest of it was done fairly simply. The mud effects I was just playing around with some sort of was it MIG do a acrylic resin type stuff that you can mix there. Damn it, what's the word? Pigments, that's the one. You can mix their pigments with it, and it turns it into this sort of solidified sort of mud effect. So that's quite good for wet mud. There's a lot of military modelers, they love their mud effects are sort of what bring a model to life. You know, you can paint a tank like this, so that it looks like it's straight out of the factory, and it'll look fantastic, but it's not until you make one look like it's actually been sort of used in the battlefield, a bit of wear and tear, that kind of thing, well loved by the crew, etc., etc., that it really sort of comes to life as a sort of model. Especially with these kind of things, they really do sort of benefit from sort of wear and tear being put on them in terms of sort of mud effects, and it being winter. I was going to go a bit more with the mud as well. As you can see, it's just kind of splattered in the wheels, and I haven't really put a great deal of effort into it. But as I said, once I'd realised that I'd completely forgotten to put any kind of markings on this, there should be number markings and the German cross type thing on the sides of this to indicate sort of what group it belongs to and things like that. You know, there's a lot more that could be done. All the equipment needs properly painting in. The exhausts down the back should all be well and truly rusted through, things like that. But as I said, this was just ended up as a test piece, really, to see sort of what kind of effects I could get with it. I quite like the rusting effect that I got on the spare track links, things like that. This was actually I used what they call a super detailing kit on this, which is where you get the sort of photo etched and resin parts to add on to it that help give it sort of a bit more detail in terms of sort of the thickness of items. So for example, sort of all of this area down here, if I bring it in, just try and show, you can see that these are all actually metal pieces, and all of this, and it basically gives it a thinness that you can't get in plastic, simply because of the way plastic's moulded and the way it works. You just cannot make really thin plastic, like sort of hundredths of a millimetre kind of thing, whereas you can in metal. So these are all sort of metal pieces that have been sort of bent and shaped. And again, on the engine coverings, these are all sort of metal grills that have been put in place, and it just gives it an extra layer of detail. You know, they come as add-on kits. Oops, oh well, broke that. Oh well, no biggie. They come as add-on kits for the Tamiya models, and you know, there's many other manufacturers of these style of models. Sort of Dragon, Hobby Boss, all sorts. But they do. There's companies that specifically do add-on kits for these types of models, and yeah, I think they're well worth it. They're a bit of a pain to work with because some of the pieces are microscopic, just ludicrously small pieces of metal that you're supposed to bend into weird shapes. But the overall effect is well worth it. So, for example, if I can get this to focus in there, you can see you've got this really small chain going into that bit to sort of lock it into place, and that, I'm not entirely sure what that piece is, but it's actually mounted on another two bits of metal that have been bent around to make them circular. So that kind of detail would have been impossible with plastic, because you just can't get, it's not a matter of not being able to mould the plastic that small, it's a matter of strength. You just can't get the strength in the plastic to actually take being that small and not just snapping instantly. I mean, as you can see, I've managed to snap this sort of tow rope kind of thing. This came with the plastic kit, and I've already managed to snap that tow rope repeatedly, several times to be honest, and that's not even that small. You know, it's probably about a millimetre in diameter, I reckon, so it's not even that small really. So yeah, super detailing kits, well worth it. They really bring up the sort of the level of the model. But again, you know, sort of paint jobs help, and obviously sort of decal markings would help too. But you know, test piece, all good for a laugh. So yeah, managed to do that. Didn't take too long to paint it actually. It's probably a couple of hours. Most of it was with an airbrush. fairly obviously airbrushes are fantastic for this kind of thing. They're practically required. I mean, 28mm figures you can't really do with an airbrush. Airbrushes just aren't small enough to cope with the detail, but sort of, you know, sort of bigger models, 72mm, this kind of thing, airbrushes are fantastic. Some point in time I might do a series on sort of my airbrushes and what I use them for, but for the moment, yeah, quite happy. I'm quite happy for a test model that I was just playing around with. I'm quite happy with the way she turned out. So cool. Alright, hopefully next time I'll actually have something to paint. Okay, bye.